What's going on, everybody? Kalip's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks to help you get more familiar with the camera of the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. So let's get started. Now the first thing I want to show you is a real quick and easy way to get to the camera app itself. So to do this, no matter what you're doing on the phone, all you need to do is double press your power key like this. And as you can see, the camera opened right up. Now like I said, you can do this from anywhere on the phone, so if you're in an app for example, double press the power key. It's going to open the camera right up, and keep in mind this does work even when the display is locked. So this is real convenient when you're trying to capture something really quickly in the moment, and this feature is active by default, so you don't even need to do anything special to enable it. But if for whatever reason it's not active on your phone, all you got to do is go to Settings. From here, go to Advanced Features, go to Side Key, and as you can see right here, double press is active, but if it's not, you can always turn it on. Now another cool thing you can do here is have it open a different app, so if you have an alternate camera app you use, or even something like Snapchat, you can use that instead. So as you can see, I do have it set to Snapchat right now, so if I double press, it's going to open Snapchat instead. So if you're trying to get to your camera quickly, this is definitely a real nice, convenient feature to have. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use your macro camera to get some nice close-up detailed images. So we're in the camera app right now. From here, what you're going to want to do is hit more. This is going to give us a bunch of different photo modes, and macro is right here. So as you can see, we're now in macro mode. So you can get those close-up detailed images, but be sure to keep the camera close enough to the subject, otherwise it's not going to focus properly. In addition to this, when you're done with macro mode, be sure to exit out of it, because of course when you're taking regular pictures, you're not going to want to be in macro mode for that. The next thing I'm going to show you is the complete opposite of a macro camera, and that is the ultra-wide camera. You can use the ultra-wide camera to capture stuff like scenery, skyline pictures, group photos, and pretty much anything where you need a wider angle. Now activating the ultra-wide camera is real easy. Just hit the 0.5 right here. And now as you can see, we got a much wider angle to work with. To get out of the ultra-wide camera, hit the 1 right here, and it's going to go right back to normal. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to customize your menu down here. So as you can see, we got easy access to features like portrait mode, fun mode, photos, videos, and this is going to make it more convenient to access modes you use often. But what if, for example, you never use fun mode, but you use the macro camera a lot? Well, you can actually change what's down here, so you can make sure you have easy access to those features. So what you're going to do is hit more, hit the plus right here, and now you can drag and drop whatever features you want to move into this bar. So for example, we're going to do macro mode, so press and hold on it, drag it into the bar. As you can see, macro mode is now down here, but I don't use fun mode, so I'm going to press and hold, drag it into the more section. And when you're done changing things, be sure to hit save, otherwise nothing is going to change. But now if we go back to the camera, as you can see, fun mode is gone, but macro mode is here. The next thing I'm going to show you is a feature called the floating shutter button. Now this feature basically gives you a second shutter button, so if you're taking a picture at a more uncomfortable angle, like for example a selfie with one hand, the floating shutter button makes it a lot easier to reach. Now you can get to this feature from the settings menu, but the easier way to do it is simply by dragging the shutter wherever you want it to go. So like this, I'm going to put it right here. So with this shutter button, it basically works like any other shutter button, so if I press it, it's going to take photos like normal. Now you can move the shutter button wherever you want, but if you want to get rid of it, all you need to do is drag it right back and it's going to disappear. So pretty simple and definitely a real useful feature. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to take high efficiency photos and videos. Now this feature is really going to be useful if you have a lot of photos and videos and you want to start saving some space on your phone. If you have a micro SD card, I personally don't really think it's that useful, especially considering that sometimes with certain platforms there are compatibility issues, but all the same it's definitely a nice thing to know about. Basically what it's going to do is change the file format of your photos and videos, and these files are a little bit smaller than normal. It's not going to change the quality or anything, but again it will change the actual file itself. So for example, normally photos are JPGs, but with this feature on, it's going to change them to a file called HEIF, or high efficiency photo I guess. Obviously that's not how you spell photo, but you get the picture. And then for videos, normally videos are MP4s, but this feature is going to change it to something called HEVC. So to turn this on, we're going to go to settings up here. Now from here, photos and videos are in slightly different spots. For photos, it's going to be right here under high efficiency pictures. And then if we go down, for videos, it's going to say reduce file size. And now when you take photos, it's going to be an HEIF file. And for videos, it's going to be HEVC. Now, one thing I do want to point out, sometimes on certain platforms, there might be a little bit of a compatibility issue, but this is not going to be under normal circumstances. Keep in mind that most high-end phones, like for example the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE that I'm using to record this video, by default this phone does shoot HEIF pictures and everything works perfectly fine, but sometimes in really specific situations, there might be a website for example that asks specifically for a JPG or a JPEG, or maybe even a PNG. In that situation, obviously an HEIF isn't going to work and then you'll have to convert it. But again, under normal circumstances, if you're just using the picture for social media or something like that, it's really not going to make any difference at all. And again, I will say, it doesn't really affect the quality, at least not that I've seen myself. So when it comes to that, you won't need to worry. Now I'm going to show you a couple things you can do with the volume keys. So by default, when you press either of these buttons, it's basically going to do the same thing, which is take a picture. So volume down, volume up. Basically just a physical shutter button, which I personally do like, but you can change what it does by going to settings, go to shooting methods, and as you can see here, there's a volume key option. Again, by default, it will take a picture or record a video. You can also have it zoom in or out, or change the system volume. So if I hit zoom in or out, now if I go back to the camera, if I hit the volume up, it's going to zoom in. And volume down is going to zoom out. So that's pretty cool. I personally like to have it at the default myself, but of course it's really just up to personal preference. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to change the aspect ratio. So to change the aspect ratio, it's real easy. All you need to do is go up here, hit the icon where it says 9:16, and just so you know, the default is probably going to be 3:4. So if we go here, we got several different options here. So the first one, of course, again, is the default 3:4. Really can't go wrong with this aspect ratio. Works well with pretty much anything except video thumbnails. And if you want to do something like that, you're going to want to do 16:9, which is basically 9:16 but in landscape mode. Say you're taking a picture for Instagram, for example, then you might want to do 1:1. Now to be perfectly honest, I don't know what people use full for, but that's basically the whole screen, which in the case of this phone is 20:9. Now you can also do 3:4 at 48 megapixels, and this is basically the full power of the camera. It's going to be a much higher quality image, but the downside is the files are a lot larger. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to take a live photo. Now I think on this phone it's actually called a motion photo. It has a slightly different name on different devices, but it basically does the same thing. It's basically used to get a picture of something in motion. So for example, someone running, maybe a car moving, a bird flying. When you use a motion photo on a scene like that, it's going to make sure the subject isn't just one giant blur. So to turn on motion photos, hit this icon right here. When it says motion photo on, when this is yellow, that's how you know it's on. Now it's kind of hard to demonstrate, but basically if I go like this, then we go to the photos. As you can see here, despite my hand moving quite a bit when the photo was taken, it showed up pretty clearly. Now that was a pretty bad example, but you probably get the picture. If you're taking a photo of a car moving, if you don't have motion photos on, if you don't have the motion photo on, it's probably just going to be one giant blur and look terrible. But with the motion photo on, what you can do is tap here, and you can view every single individual frame, and that's going to allow you to actually capture an image in motion. Now it's really nice that this phone actually does have this feature, because unfortunately lots of phones, even ones more expensive than this one, don't have it, and that's really too bad, because then the only way you can even possibly capture something in motion is with a burst shot, and I'll tell you from experience, burst shots are terrible for that kind of thing. So again, if you're trying to get a photo of something in motion, definitely make sure this is highlighted, because that's how you know the motion photo feature is on. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is how to change your video resolution. Now it's actually real nice. We can shoot 4K videos on this phone in both the rear and front cameras, which is an improvement from the previous model, the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G, that could only shoot 4K in the rear camera. But you might be wondering, how do we actually get it to shoot in 4K? Well, let me show you. So we're going to go to video mode. And from here, go to the icon right next to the aspect ratio where it says FHD 30. Now in case you don't know, FHD, also known as Full HD, is basically just 1080p, so it's a really standard issue type of quality. But if we tap on this, we got several different options. First one is HD, which is only 720p, so if you don't really care about the quality, but you want the file size to be a lot smaller, then you might want to use HD instead. We can also shoot in 1080p at 60 frames per second, and having a higher frame rate is going to allow you to do stuff like slow motion, and overall the video is going to be generally a little bit smoother. And then last but not least, we can use 4K or Ultra HD at 30 frames per second. Now it's too bad this phone can't shoot 4K videos at 60 frames per second, but at least we still do get 4K in general. So if you do want to take higher quality videos, then luckily we can at least do that with this phone. But those were my camera tips and tricks for the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Once again, if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my full review of it and other tips and tricks videos on the channel. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found the information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. But as always, I will see you in the next video.